All right, we're on. Welcome to another mouth breathing awareness video. Today I'm interviewing Hannah Gerk, and before we get into your story, Hannah, I think I should just explain once again what we're doing here. So today is May 22nd, so that means we're 22 days into this campaign. And what I'm trying to do is shine some light on how common myofunctional symptoms really are. So mouth breathing is like a huge red flag symptom for myofunctional problems, sleep problems, clenching and grinding, so many other things that a lot of these interviews I've done have really highlighted, and I think hopefully connect the dots for people. But my goal is if all of us who are dentists and hygienists can share our stories, then maybe regular people who are our patients can start to relate and understand why we're getting into this, why we're recommending these treatments, and why for so many of us it's so personal, and why we're so passionate about it, right? So Hannah, I know you are from St. Ansgar, Iowa, which is near Minneapolis, kind of between Des Moines and Minneapolis, right?
Yep.
And why don't you just start off, tell your story about how you got into this, because I think you're another one of us like me who we got into this field after we realized our symptoms kind of after we got into this. So take it away, go for it. Let's hear your story and how you got started, and then the rest of what you're going to explain, and we'll just talk back and forth.
Okay. So yeah, I had no idea what myofunctional therapy was. I'm a dental hygienist, and I had been for probably 7 or 8 years when the doctor I work for came back from a con ed course on breathing and airway. And he was talking about myofunctional therapy and how these doctors refer to a myofunctional therapist or hire one. And I didn't know what it was. I had no idea that I could do it as a dental hygienist. And so I started Googling it, which brought me to you, Sarah, and your
Yay.
MyoMentor program, which I've loved. So I called you and talked to you on the phone, and you totally like sealed the deal as to me wanting to become a myofunctional therapist. I thought it was so cool, and I just wanted to offer that to people in my area. It was something that was definitely not around here, and
Yeah, I'm definitely enthusiastic when I talk about it. I'm like,
yeah.
um,
I signed
passionate,
it.
right?
Class was starting right away, so I got to jump right into it. And after I was in your class and I'm learning about everything, I realized like, hey, this is describing me for some of these things. I had premolars taken out during orthodontics when I was in junior high, so my mouth is smaller than it should be, so my tongue doesn't fit in there as well.
Yeah.
Those things were just, I was realizing that it was me that I was learning about.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is always kind of like a double-edged sword. Like it's cool to learn something new, but it kind of is frustrating when you're like, why has no one ever told me this in my entire life? Like, why am I just discovering this now, you know?
Yeah, and I'm super happy that I had braces, growing up. I'm really grateful that my parents did that for me, but I just really wish that somebody would have said, "Hey, why don't you get her mouth bigger to fit her teeth and for her airway and her tongue rather than take out permanent teeth?"
Yeah, I know.
And then I guess while I was going through your program, I started doing like my own myofunctional therapy on myself. And I realized my tongue was not resting in the roof of my mouth. And so I started working on that. As I was trying to hold my tongue in the roof of my mouth is when I realized that I couldn't comfortably do that. And so
Mhm.
I did not have an obvious tongue tie to look at my tongue, and even the function of my tongue was great. It looked great, but I couldn't
Yeah.
keep it up there comfortably. So I did have a tongue tie release procedure done as well.
Yeah, and that's I love how you're describing that, because it isn't obvious in a lot of people, but it all comes down to function. And if you physically don't have the ability to rest your tongue in your palate, not just during the day, but also during the night, then to me that's an indication that a surgery is potentially necessary. If through all the exercises and retraining you just don't have that capability, then that's when, yeah, it does make sense to do a frenectomy. So did you ever notice mouth breathing or other breathing issues?
So I would have never said I was a mouth breather had somebody asked me. I think it started for me when I was probably between the age of 3 and 5. I had allergies and asthma and really struggled with breathing then. I grew out of it, so they
Mhm.
say. So it's not like I have problems breathing right now, but I think I was always just barely breathing through my mouth, like that tiny little opening of your lips, not the full open mouth.
Yeah.
And so I think it started then, which led to the development of the smaller mouth. And then, yeah, not obvious mouth breathing, but I definitely was.
Yeah. Did you notice it at night more? Because sometimes people can compensate pretty well during the day. They don't really notice it, but they sleep at night and they know they always wake up with a dry mouth or they have other symptoms like that. Did you notice it then?
Yes, definitely more at night. And I would say I used to drool at night. And then after I've had my tongue tie release and done the myofunctional therapy, I mean, I don't think I've woke up having drooled for a really long time.
Yeah, I can totally relate. And so many of these things are like weird or embarrassing to talk about, but they're so common. And I actually really like it. Your story is a good example, a little bit like Erin, when she shared her story, she was saying, I don't really have any crazy obvious symptoms, but there's always subtle things or big things that people can relate to. So what else did you notice after you started changing your breathing and your tongue posture, had your tongue tie release? Can you kind of talk about other symptoms that you noticed changed or that were brought to your attention that you didn't really realize before?
Yeah, so with the tongue itself, once the tongue tie was released and I'd healed a little bit from that, my tongue comfortably rested in the roof of my mouth. I didn't have to think about holding it up there. It just sat there. And then I also feel like I was sleeping better. I would have never said I slept bad or that I slept bad. But afterwards, it's like I think I was not waking up as much and not moving around as much after I had done the release and the therapy.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it makes perfect sense. If you're actually sleeping better because you're breathing better, then you're able to get into those deeper stages of sleep, and so you wake up feeling more well rested. And a lot of I notice this with my own patients, with myself, and your story reflects this perfectly. People don't even realize they're not sleeping as well as they could until they make some of these changes, and then all of a sudden you have something to compare it to, and now it's like, wow, I actually do sleep a lot better now. So
Yep. And then I would say too, like the head and neck or neck and shoulder tension that people get, I've always had that. And I've always figured it was from being a dental hygienist and the way that we, sit all day long. And I think it does have to do with that. But I did realize that it was a little bit less of that constant tension after I had the procedure done too.
good. Where did you mostly feel the tension? Describe that just in case anybody else is relating.
For me, I'd say it was like the back and sides of my neck and then the tops of my shoulders.
Okay. A lot of people will describe like the occipital, like base of the skull area. That's one I hear a lot. And then obviously like the face, like tension of temporalis or masseters. Sometimes people say that too. So, but yours is mostly neck, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like I didn't have any like jaw pain or issues with clenching or grinding, but I view it as me doing the myofunctional therapy and having the release procedure done now is like a prevention to prevent those things from coming on as I get older.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's so smart because, yeah, a lot of things that we can manage and compensate through when we're in our 20s, 30s, even 40s, it's different for everyone on when in their lifetime do things start to get bad enough that they notice. A lot of things that are fine in your 20s, by the time you're in your 40s or 50s, they're much bigger problems. So it's so smart to be able to fix these things as young as possible. Obviously, if we were all, had this figured out when we were babies or really young kids, that would be optimal. But, depending on where you are when you figure this stuff out, the sooner the better.
Yes, definitely. All about prevention.
Yes. Well, this is great. Do you want to give any shout outs? I know you're working with an awesome dental office who, it sounds like your dentist is the one that brought this all to your attention. And then, anyone else you want to mention that maybe patients should reach out to?
Yeah, so Bergmeier Dentistry is where I first learned myofunctional therapy and where I do dental hygiene at. And Dr. Kyle Bergmeier is who took the class from Dr. Zaghi at the Breathe Institute for
Awesome.
the functional frenuloplasty procedure. So he's providing that service to patients. And then Dr. Leonard is an orthodontist in our area that I've worked with some too, with patients that need some airway and things going on, orthodontic wise. And then Dr. Krista Geisler out of Plymouth, Minnesota is another one that does the functional frenuloplasties. And she
Great.
does a lot with infant tongue ties. That's where I've been sending anybody that I contact or contacts me about babies.
That's perfect. I mean, I think one of my newest passions in this myofunctional therapy space is connecting all the like-minded providers. So getting the myofunctional therapists connected with the dentists who are doing the procedures and the orthodontists who can, you know, create more space in the mouth. And it's the perfect team when everything comes together. So yay, I'm glad you found your people. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely been challenging, but really fun to reach out to those people and find some like-minded, you know, dental professionals out there.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. Is there anything else you want to add? Maybe actually share the name of your practice.
Yeah, so I have Smile Myotherapy, and I see people either in person or online, depending on where they're located.
Good. I hope people reach out to you. You're an awesome resource, and it sounds like you've got a great team for patients as well. So, yeah, thank you so much for sharing your story. It was perfect. I think it's, you know, another great resource for hopefully patients or professionals to watch and learn more about all of these symptoms. So, yeah,
Thank
thanks a
you.
lot. All right, I'll let you go. I'll talk with you later.
Yep, bye.
Bye.